All right.
Sure.
Who's on?
Tom Howard, State Water Resources Control Board, again. Hello to senators. Chuck Bonham is with me, obviously, since a lot of the concerns are associated with both the State Water Board and Department of Fish and Wildlife issues. So I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes sort of taking us up to a high level as to why we are proposing these requirements. First, fundamentally, what we are trying to do is work out a workable approach to implement the 2015 marijuana legislation that was adopted by the legislature and signed by the governor. Among the many provisions in the legislation, it required the license issued by CDFA to protect in-stream flows, to provide conditions for in-stream flow protection, and for the Water Board to provide them recommendations as to how to do that. When I started thinking about what that meant, to a great extent, in most of the state where we have large marijuana grows, there's very little, if any, water available in the summer. So what it fundamentally means is most of the marijuana growers need to develop storage during winter high flow events. Now, that means that all of them need water right permits because you can't exercise a riparian right using storage. You can't store under a riparian right. So fundamentally, almost all of the estimated 50,000, but let's just say, tens of thousands of growers are going to need to have a water right permit of some kind from the State Water Resources Control Board. Now, I look at our existing, backlog of 6 or 7 years to issue a permit. We only have 350 or so pending applications, so we're proposing, what it looks like is tens of thousands of sudden applications pouring in. And so nobody's going to get legal for decades if we follow the existing process. So the idea was to try to develop a process that actually works and that we can stand up in 20 months because we're supposed to be doing this by January of 2018. And so the proposal in front of you today is designed to try to accomplish that. Fundamentally, what we're doing is we're proposing, first off, of course, that the clarifying agency roles so that the Water Board and CDFW will be in charge of protecting in-stream flows instead of Department of Food and Ag. From the Water Board perspective, what we're trying to do is get to a position where we can issue ag registrations to the marijuana growers. And ag registration is something that is presently possible for us to issue if there is an in-stream flow policy in place that we can use to be the basis for the registration. And this whole process was set up through AB 2121, which is in a 5-county area in the North Coast. And we did an in-stream flow policy for that area. And then the folks in that area with agricultural ponds of less than 20 acre-feet are capable of signing up for a registration. So the problem we have is we need to get in-stream flow policies in place so that the agricultural operations can actually file for registrations and then presumably get them adopted quickly. Well, our experience with AB 2121 is that it was an 11-year process for us to basically get across the finish line. We started in 2005, and we're just about there right now. So that's not a good model. The way we did it before is not a good model. We needed a new model. The proposal we established was we said, well, let's do an interim, some in-stream flow policy that is not potentially perfect, but that we can use existing scientific understanding of river processes and say, in the winter, you can take water under these kind of conditions in a very generic way without doing a lot of site-specific stream studies. That would allow the people to get a registration based on the interim policy. But we also didn't want to leave that as being the end all of it. The point is to bring these folks completely into what I think is referred to by your staff as the strict water right program. And so that's what we intend to do. by then spending the time to do a long-term stream policy that will actually take into account all the necessary protections on a more site-specific basis. So that's the general idea. In order for us to do that, we believed we needed a CEQA exemption as well to do these policies, based on, again, our experience in 21-21, which, like I said, was essentially an 11-year policy, well, an 11-year process, 5 to 6 years for the Water Board to actually get through the CEQA process, and then another 5 to 6 years of litigation. CEQA litigation was the only thing that was being litigated, was the adequacy of the CEQA document. Your staff had a couple of questions regarding the water rights issues. One was, if this is cleanup legislation, why would we insert lengthy water and in-stream flow requirements into the big business and professions code? We could put it into the water code. It's kind of awkward because it's a marijuana-only provision. These apply only to marijuana growers, and all the other provisions of the marijuana legislation are in the business and professions code. So, you know, it would be broken out from where the other parts were. We thought that it was a better approach to put all of the laws regarding the code regarding marijuana cultivation into a single place. But if the intent or the desire is to move it into the water code, we could do so. Like I say, a bit awkward because it's only for one particular type of growing operation. And so the next question is, why are we treating marijuana crops differently? Well, it's basically the fact that we have 20 months to put something together that will be applicable or be able to be used for tens of thousands of parties. And so it's our intent to bring everybody, ultimately, every marijuana grower, into compliance with what your staff refers to as California's strict water right laws. I agree, there's strict water right laws. But this is a process to get there that's going to unfold over time, but it allows the parties to have something within a 20-month period. And the last is the CEQA exemption question. We agree completely. We don't think CEQA exemptions are desirable. We looked at this, again, this calendar that we had, and we started putting together what it would take to get across the finish line. And we have, it's our opinion that we're going to need about, not just one in-stream flow policy, but several, because of the various hydrologic circumstances that exist in the state. Some are snow-fed areas, some are rainfall-fed, some are groundwater-fed, and they all have different hydrologic characteristics. And so we're going to have to probably put together different policies. Each one, we estimate somewhere in the area of around 5 years to get a CEQA document across the finish line for a policy. Each one is in the area of $2 to $5 million to do that work. So we're trying to, again, it's the time schedule that's driving this, and we also are not exactly fans of CEQA exemptions. With that, that's the Water Board story, but now Chuck's story.
I'm just curious whose name is going to be on the letter to all of these 10,000 or more marijuana growers informing
And I would be glad to sign it.
the California's water rights system.
So, Chair and Senators, I would just add 3 perspectives or pieces of input from me and my department. First, it's rare that I personally disagree with staff recommendation. I do in this one on page 23. Tempus fugit for our department. I will explain that in a minute. Second, here's how I answer the 3 questions on page 23. Why the Business and Professions Code? Last year, as you know, 3 bills for the first time went into law to put rigor on medicinal marijuana cultivation in the state. The vast majority of that scheme is memorialized in the Business and Profession Code. We're amending the licensing structure that's defined in that code primarily through the point licensing entity of CDFA. What we're proposing are technical amendments within that scheme that was created last year. That's why Business and Profession Code. Second, I actually think the question number 2 is better flip-flopped. In my judgment, we're not treating marijuana differently. We're trying to get marijuana up to the equitable playing field all other products are required to comply with in front of the State Water Board and my department. That's the unfairness, arguably. The challenge is we don't know how big the tiger we have by the tail actually is, how many individual entities we need to move from not complying with existing law to complying with existing law and doing it in a smart way. Third, the exemption. Here's Tempest Fugit. From my staff's perspective, particularly in Northern California, and we're publishing in the scientific literature on this, we look at 4 critical watersheds. 3 out of the 4 are going dry. We look at millions of dollars of salmon restoration in the North Coast, and my staff are worried it's all for naught because of the practices, particularly around diversion. I have not found that CEQA fits well when your baseline is such a degraded state and the project is designed to actually improve upon the degraded environmental state. I don't think we raise the concept of an exemption lightly.
Be a negative declaration if that was the case?
We have to move fast, and I think that's why you see the department and the water board having thought through options and what you now see in front of you in the trailer bill language. I've spent some time in the last couple of days talking with the timber industry, talking, I think, later this week with the marijuana industry, and talking with the environmental and conservation community. I understand my environmental community's nervousness around this third component, but from where we sit at the department, we're running out of time, if haven't already, to improve upon the degraded state.
All right, just a clarification. The recommendation is to reject the proposal so that there can be this discussion that goes forward on the language, trailer bill language, on language changes. So I think Tempest Fugit for us too, this end. So that is the recommendation. Question, Senator Nielsen?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And my comments are to be taken very publicly. I want the citizens of California to know this netherworld we've embarked on with this legislation. And Mr. Howard, your board has been put in a very awkward situation, as has your department too, the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I've been working with your departments and local sheriffs for a number of years. This class of individuals are of the worst despoilers of our land and of our fish and wildlife that there is. And we've been working with you to try to gain some enforcement leverage over them. And your personnel have been fearful of their lives going out there to try to enforce anything from this population who don't seem to care. And now, with this legislation, I don't want to say intended consequences, but unintended or ill-thought-out consequences, we're faced with an absolutely idiotic situation. Legitimate, law-abiding landowners, property owners, people entitled to water rights wait decades to perfect their water rights. Now a class of individuals, maybe some of whom are very well-intended and want to be law-abiding producers of medical marijuana, are going to get bumped to the head of the line, get waivers that are almost impossible. This legislature will waive CEQA only for stadiums, but not for streets and roads for the millions of Californians, but for stadiums, and now for marijuana growers. That's like a Mad Hatter's Tea Party. I can't believe the absurdity that we are even talking about this. And I'm going to speak very loudly that something is very wrong where we confronted with the situation of giving marijuana growers such privileges. We ought not. They wait at the end of the line. The way to fix this is to change the provision of the 20 months. That's the simple way. And that can be done in urgency legislation. That can be done in a trailer bill. That makes sense. This is insanity.
All right, I wanted to commend both departments for grappling with an extraordinary problem. And there are, as my colleague, Senator Nielsen, pointed out, there are damages that are imminent, exist now and are imminent in terms of further damage already in the state of California, and you're doing your best to figure out what to do with those thousands of unregulated and unregulated marijuana farmers, producers. So I think this is an extraordinary effort. The recommendation is to reject the proposal, not because we don't support the proposal. We do, and the efforts,
we have to deal with
but we have to deal with the language and the questions over the next couple weeks so that we have something to put into the budget and the trailer bill. So with that, I'd like a motion.
Move that motion so we can have the discussions for the next few weeks.
Make the motion to reject.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. The staff recommendation to reject the proposal is clear. Public comment. We'll give that to Senator Nielsen if he likes.
Good morning.
Yes.
Noelle Kramers with the California Farm Bureau Federation. I appreciate the questions that the staff raised in the agenda and appreciate the concept of not agreeing to this at this point. Farm Bureau has some significant concerns with some of the provisions included. One of them is an exemption for marijuana growers from the state's 1600 program, the Streambed Alteration Agreement program. And we think that that goes against what has been planned and agreed to by the legislature to include marijuana in those. And there are other provisions, and we appreciate the opportunity to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
We agree. I think this is a...
Can you identify yourself?
Dennis Albiani on behalf of the California Seed Association, as well as other agricultural interests specifically. One of the provisions actually exempts cannabis seed from the seed program. It seems like the whole concept of the regulatory program was to treat cannabis as a commodity and many of the other things, so we're wondering why that was included in there. We also think that some of these in-stream flow provisions are a significant overreach, especially where there might be, and we understand the North Coast issues and some of those. I think there's very legitimate discussions, but what happens when a asparagus field from a riparian user is converted to a cannabis and there's no change in the amount? Do you still have to go through this process? We think that the process is burdensome, and the whole idea was to bring some of these folks out of the shadows, and I think by having this extremely burdensome and aggressive water provisions, you could actually keep them in the shadows and not meet the requirements. And then obviously the CEQA exemption is an interesting request by the agencies.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good morning, Kyle Jones with Sierra Club, California. We actually don't have a position, but I thought I'd explain it given that there's so many of our priorities at stake here. We do support the idea of setting in-stream flow priorities. We think it's prudent and precautionary to determine how much water is actually available for appropriation before approving that, and over the long term can prevent degradation that would further reduce overall diversions. I think the Delta is a good example. If we don't measure how much we can actually take out of a system, over time it slowly produces less and less water. As far as the CEQA exemptions go, we are opposed to the statutory exemption for the long-term in-stream flow priorities. We're not opposed to the exemption for the interim flows. We believe that, in an emergency setting, such as this one where you actually have streams drying up, that it is appropriate. But we feel that the statutory exemption for the long-term flows is actually unnecessary. There are categorical exemptions that apply for resource protection and environmental protection. And we think that the categorical exemption process with the exceptions to the exemptions where they might apply would better protect the environment, but where you have no impacts would get the water board the time frame that they desire. But again, no position at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion to reject the proposal without prejudice from Senator Nielsen. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolf?
Aye. Aye.
Senator Pavley?
All right, 3-0, that is approved. Thank you all. We're moving on to the Department of Conservation. We have one issue which has to do with the Williamson Act contracts.
Senator, could I ask your
yes.
indulgence on the last item? I don't want to change a vote or anything, but Director Bonham's comments on some of the language we raised here on the why are we treating no marijuana different than other crops? We really, what we want them to do is treat the same as
All the other crops.
everyone else. So it's a nuanced kind of, but I thought that was sort of relevant, that it's not a special circumstance. They just have to comply like everyone else does, right? Is that correct, or?
It is, but that is an
Okay.
interim program
Yeah.
because of the enormity of it.
Oh, I know,
With the intent to-
the North Coast is under assault.
All right, on to the Williamson Act contracts. Senator Nielsen, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, we've discussed this, Senator, the reversion of in excess of $2.5 million, and maybe I might suggest an alternative if we would increase that to $5 million, and we would hope that that might make that a little bit more acceptable, and if that could be my amended motion.
That sounds like a good idea. We are very supportive of the Williamson Act contracts, and there's been an effort to raise the cap, a suggestion to raise the cap on the amount, which goes to the department from 2.5 to 5 million, still allowing for the remainder to go into the general fund where it currently does go, but it would allow some increase in monies to go to DOC for land and open space protection, soil protection, sustainable ag practices, and other beneficial programs and support of resource conservation districts, which currently occurs, just would be more. So is there, that was a motion from
make that
Senator Nielsen. And any comment?
Sure. Ellen Moradi, Department of Finance. Notwithstanding the merits of the proposal, we continue to support the governor's budget.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Ben Turner from the Department of Conservation. We're just here to answer any questions that may arise associated with this issue.
All right, any public comment? All right, say quickly. Come.
Hi, my name is Karen Burr. I'm the Executive Director for the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts. And we really want to thank you for taking the time to hear this morning. As you know, RCDs are really critical to land and water conservation in the state of California, and we appreciate you taking the time to really address some of our critical concerns. We are asking respectfully that you take the amendment number 2, alternate number 2. We know that this wouldn't solve our problems, but it would go a really long way in helping us to meet the capacity needs that the RCDs have in meeting their community's conservation goals, conservation and agricultural goals at the local level. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Welcome.
Lisa Noble with Plaza Resource Conservation District, constituent in Senator Nielsen's district for over 70 years, and really want to thank the committee and the senator for their support of this concept. As you know, RCDs do important work in finding that common ground between agricultural production and natural resource conservation. And but one of our biggest challenges is a permanent funding stream to help us be more strategic in doing that. And so we appreciate this being a step towards that, so that we can, again, be more strategic in addressing agricultural and natural resource concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, I'm Heather Nichols with the Yolo County Resource Conservation District, and I want to thank Senator Wolk for recognizing this need and putting this, and for the committee putting this for consideration. I wanted to just talk really briefly about one RCD is doing that could benefit from increased funding. So the Yolo County RCD has been active for over 20 years, meaning that there's been professional staff doing conservation work. Our mission is to protect, improve, and sustain the natural resources of Yolo County, as the other 96 RCDs in the state have very similar missions. We serve over 650,000 acres, including agricultural operations, rangeland, public open space, which in our county is about 85% of the land area, as well as developed areas. We have accomplished a number of successes in improving water quality, addressing water conservation, restoring habitat, and developing new ways of achieving conservation goals. The RCD uses a model of cooperation and voluntary action instead of regulation to solve complex local, regional, and statewide issues. One of our current programs that we're working on right now, I just wanted to mention, is the Yola Creek and Community Partnership. And that is a 4-year program that we've been doing, and which has gotten in thousands of trees and over tens of thousands of plants, and has benefited thousands of local high school students and community members in on-the-ground restoration, primarily on farm and ranch land. So again, I would like you all to consider the option 2 in the committee agenda, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further public comment? Hearing none, the motion from Senator Nielsen is to raise the cap on the amount that's directed to the department to $5 million to allow for more funding in good years. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolf?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
3-0. That is supported. Now on to the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. We have 3 items in front of us. We'll take them one at a time. First, issue 1, which is the helicopter procurement. LAO?